Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Music School podcast. Today, we are doing something that we haven't done since last year, and that is our 5 for 5 format. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that we like to bring on school owners that are doing something interesting or unique, or I just think have an interesting story to tell. And we kind of interview them in this format where we ask the same 5 questions of every owner that comes on. So the last few folks that we've had on have been Vera, who has the school outside of Columbus, Ohio. We talked to Caitlin Davidson, who has a really interesting musical course that she's selling to adult students and doing really, really well with that. We had Brian King on last year. But for our first 5 for 5 episode of 2024, we actually wanted to bring on someone who I know a bit better, not necessarily because I've worked with him in a coaching capacity, which is a lot of the people we brought on, I've worked with him in a coaching capacity. But I wanted to bring on Adam, who I have kind of partnered with over the last couple of years around the SEO space. Adam actually does SEO for a couple of businesses of mine, and I've had a great working relationship with him over the last couple of years. But not only do we have Adam on, Erika, who actually runs PPI, Philadelphia Piano Institute, the school that they run, is also here with us, and they're going to talk and answer the 5 for 5 questions about their school. So Adam and Erika, I'm really excited that you all are here.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Welcome, guys. So happy to see you. Thank you for joining us.
So I'm just going to jump into the first question. And Adam, Erika, I don't know exactly how you want to answer this, but if you have separate answers for this question, I'd love to hear those. If you have one kind of combined answer where you both kind of see eye to eye on the question, happy to do that too. This is a little bit of a change. We've never had 2 folks on for 5 for 5, but since you all are running the school together, we'll play it by ear. So question number 1. What are you most proud of? Something that you feel you do really, really well at your school?
Why don't you take this one first?
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. But I would say hiring is probably the thing I'm most proud of. And that's definitely unique to this past year, because that was not the case when we first started out. I mean, we've had a great team of teachers since the beginning, but it was a real struggle to hire. So that just was like a lot of pain for me. But, when we did find someone, it was a thrill. But as of this last year, we've actually had many people come our way, which was really encouraging. And basically what I'm just really proud of is like the team that we have is so like-minded. For backstory, the Institute grew out of my home studio. I was teaching piano lessons for years, and my philosophy was, very straightforward, and people in my neighborhood really wanted it, and they wanted more people than I could take on wanted it. So that's why PPI was created. So that was really important to find, like-minded teachers who shared the same teaching philosophy and just like general philosophy of music. So yeah, I'm most proud of that, and I also kind of want to, I need to give credit to the podcast here, because there's actually an episode here that gave us the idea. Yeah, I forget now which episode it was, but it was something where, I don't remember now who mentioned it. Sorry, I should have looked that up. But something about how messaging for students is really important, but messaging for your ideal teacher is really important. So I jumped into Adam and I was like, hey, I think we need a landing page for our ideal teacher, like a career page or something. I don't know that. That's Adam's side of the business. So I just kind of give him the ideas. I'm like, do you think that sounds good? So that was something where he was like, yeah. So he created that. And once that was live, that was making a difference with the people that were coming, visiting our site, contacting us, but then also just, it was beneficial for both parties. I feel like we weren't wasting anyone else's time either. And I feel like that was the biggest thing. So yeah, that's kind of, I feel like that's what I'm most proud of.
Interesting. And I think that is kind of a cool segue into Adam. I think you had mentioned that, or what Erika just said there, was that it kind of dovetails with what your instinct was on how to answer this question. I'm curious what your instinct was there of what you're most proud of.
One of the things I'm most proud of is certainly our lead generation. I don't have an exact number, but I think last month was something like 80 to 90 leads, all very densely close to us, which is cool. It's a lot. But we also get leads from teachers, and it's because we just did the same thing. I just did SEO around hiring because I quickly realized that ZipRecruiter sucks. Indeed sucks. You don't get referrals. There's no good way to do it. And so I just did SEO around people looking for piano teaching jobs. So we were getting leads, but they weren't all any good. And so then we already had these landing pages, right? And there's all kinds of little technical details about what you have to do for that. But then Erika said, hey, I listened to this podcast. I think you know Daniel. I was like, yes. She was like, can we revise the messaging? And I was like, oh, I don't need something else to do. But we did, and it worked. So now we get very, very highly qualified applicants, which is something we would never take for granted. We're extremely grateful for, because these are people who want to work with us. And to me, it's like, wow, I'm flattered, that you would want to be involved with what we're doing in Philadelphia. And the fact that we feel that way when we get these applications, I think, means that the strategy worked. People that are very qualified, they're not just teachers, they're actually pianists at a professional level, which is, generally what we're looking for. And all of the branding and the messaging on the careers page and the website as a whole helps these people feel welcomed in our studio, because they feel like they're going to be artistically valued. They're not just going to show up and do their job and nobody cares that they're an artist. We deeply care. We give them the best pianos we can afford, great rooms. All of this stuff works together to make it a good space for a very ideal teaching fit for our business.
What is something that is really challenging you in your operational role at the Institute? Something, anything.
Finding the right administrative hire. And Erika's going to talk about this more, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But it's hard. It's like, do I want to get paid more, or do I just want to hire someone and not have to do all of this stuff? And this is mostly Erika's.
Right.
We're really trying to figure out when to enter the black hole of hiring again. We're not scaling this year. Like we have 2 storefronts. That's enough capital down the toilet. Hiring is down to a steady crawl. We don't find any pianos. But now it's like, do we make that like big salaried hire? And I'll let Erika take it.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, like that's definitely the biggest challenge right now, is just knowing how to create the position. And then this kind of goes in, with pricing, right? Because like that's definitely like, what's competitive salary, what is expected of someone in this position. And like, I was just a piano teacher years ago, so like I'm doing all of this for like learning firsthand. So definitely just trying to create an administrative position so that I can, handle more of chatting with the instructors, because my background is all in pedagogy. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. Yeah. And I would like to be able to work, side by side with teachers, as opposed to doing all the customer service, which is great and all. I'm a business owner, I get to do that. But we're getting to that point where we're going to have to kind of like, jump off the deep end, it feels like. And it's kind of like, oh, when do we do that? So that's our biggest challenge, is knowing when, knowing how, and just, creating that position so that it's attractive and it's actually correct. And it's just the smoothest transition for everybody involved.
Can I ask some specifics for our listeners? What's your student count right now? 2 locations, by the way, congratulations. Going from 1 to 2, that's a leap. But how many students do you have right now, or enrollments rather?
We have 130 active students,
right.
And that's how we count them, because we've got some students who are not taking weekly lessons.
That's fine.
And so they'll just, So the weekly lessons, 130.
Great. And now you're feeling that pressure, because just to reframe what you said, you're like, here's where I'm most engaged and most valuable to my community. So how can we take some of these things off our plate? By the way, we're doing annual planning right now, and one of the questions to the leadership team at Brooklyn Music Factory is, list 5 things right now that you would delegate if you could. Right? I feel like that's like your mindset right now, Erika. You're like, I'm ready to delegate. Definitely. So that leads me to my follow-up question, my remaining minute and 30 seconds we have in this 5. What are the 5 things you delegate right now?
Definitely registration. Inputting students' information into our filing, intake, in hand, event organization, just general customer service, and invoicing.
And invoicing, I love it. Okay, so I heard you say essentially sales, right? intake, i.e. taking that initial lead and doing something with it, because you're getting 80 to 90. So clearly Adam is doing his job. So
yeah, you have a corporate dynamic where sales and marketing are fighting with each other.
That friction is so normal, actually, it turns out, even in a music school. But I hear sales. Then I also hear, just once you've converted that person, getting them into the system so they can actually successfully show up to their lesson. And then I also hear FAQs, that the email inbox just gets flooded with those. And then finally I heard billing. I just essentially receivables, right? Love it. That's a great starting list. I think we're out of time on this question. So Daniel, I'm pinging it back to you. 5 for 5. What do we got next?
So, again, however you all want to answer this, whatever order, what's one lesson you've learned in the last year, or a big lesson you've learned in the last year?
I'll do mine real quick because it's easy. Reviews matter more than people give them credit for. And I get questions from people in my community all the time about, why am I not getting more leads from families with kids? I'm like, well, you don't have any reviews. And there's not a mother in the world who's going to send their kid to your studio if you don't have any reviews. So that's all I will say about that.
Amen to that, Adam. I love that.
Well, for me, it's been to conserve emotional energy. And that sounds kind of like, oh, what do you mean? But I've been doing a lot of customer service, which has been a lot of just answering the general questions day to day. And, a lot of people, I don't blame them, but they come with frustrations. And so me having mostly a teacher heart, I was trying to be very empathetic with people and very understanding, trying to be very reasonable. And then I realized that my quality of life was plummeting and I didn't know why. And so finally, Adam was actually like, you should just not spend too much time on any one question. I was getting anxiety before I'd even open an email. Because I was like, oh, I already know what this person's going to say, or I'm assuming, I would make all these assumptions. So I had to personally learn, all right, it's just black and white. Just open the email, read it. Almost don't care who the name is or where it's coming from. Just make sure I'm, addressing the person correctly. I'm giving them accurate information. And then I just sign out. And that's it, and move on. That has been probably the biggest lesson learned for me. And that's made a big difference with my efficiency as far as getting stuff done.
How have you, it's one thing to say conserve emotional energy. How have you practically gone about doing that? Is there something that you've put into your daily routine, or how have you done it?
Definitely I had to create mental space and then figure out how I was going to create the physical space. So I definitely had to block out particular hours because the thing I do love about this job is it's so flexible. I don't have appointments necessarily unless I create the appointments. So that was another thing. I had to then create my appointments. It wasn't just this ongoing thing all day. Okay, so I'm going to work for X amount of time and I'm just going to go knock out these emails like they're tasks. Also, I finally got a planner that makes sense. I've tried all sorts of kinds and I found one online and it works for me. And it just has short to-do lists per day. It's organized in a way that makes sense visually for me. And I just had to create a habit of opening that planner every day. And that was the first thing I do. I write down any phone call appointments that people wanted. So I schedule those out for the day. So it's first thing. So it's kind of been, I had to work on the mental space and then I put it visually on a piece of paper in my planner. So that was the physical space.
I love those hot tips because they segue beautifully to our next question. What is the one action that you would encourage our listeners to take right now if they were to take nothing else away from this episode? What's the one action? Adam, go. You got to fizz it up, dude. What do you got?
Get more reviews.
I love that. Adam, you'll appreciate that was literally one of our 3 priorities in 2023 was to get more Google reviews. And here you are saying it, and I underlined it hallelujah, we did at least one thing right at VMS. Okay, get more reviews. Is there an action someone can take right now to get more reviews?
Yes, send some emails. Go to your Google business profile, which presumably someone has. If they don't, email me or Daniel. That go to, if you're signed in, you can copy the quick link to send to somebody. There's like a little, it's not the very long URL. Copy the little link, put an email, say, hey, you've been with us for a year. We love that. Can you please leave your teacher a review? You can also put it on the teacher. Like you're not going to teach them, say, would you leave, John a review? And it makes it a little more personal. And they will. And then you respond to that review on Google. And then this happens and you'll rank better in search. You'll have a better conversion rate. You can make little image tiles and put it on a testimonials page on your website. You can do whatever you want, but you got to get them, and just start with people who haven't left you a review yet. You can also do incentives. Like if you have a trial lesson program, let someone have another discounted lesson if they leave you a review or something that you probably don't want to do like that, but like come up with something creative just to get 10 or 15 reviews in the door. You got to have them.
Love that. That's very actionable, very doable. What you got, Erika?
Well, mine definitely comes from the customer service side, and it kind of goes hand in hand with my previous answer, but communicate positively, meaning if you can say something without using the word don't or not, say it that way. Because that, for me, just made a huge difference with how effectively things were done and how efficiently things were done. So for me, coming from the administrative side of things, that just made a really big difference. And frankly, I kind of like talking that way better. I kind of been in a better mood when I avoid using negative words. And then they have a lot more impact when you do use them. But for instance, a lot of people just come with you with questions about the policy. And it's like, you already have the policy. You signed it when you started the lessons. So it's like, it's something as simple as saying like, they're asking a question about the makeup policy. Instead of me saying, no, we don't do X. It's like, I just reiterate it in the same language, or I just, say it plainly positively and that's it. And I just don't defend myself and don't use the, negative terminology. And usually it's just fine and no one's angry.
Final question here. If I can find it on my screen. Here we go. What's one thing you've done for yourself personally in the past year that has brought you more joy as an owner?
Something that I wanted us to do for a while, which we finally started doing, is doing small group meetings for our students. And this is something that I personally wanted because a lot of the people at the Institute kind of want a community. We have a lot of adults and they're doing something to make their life a little more fulfilled and rich, right? But also our teachers who want to feel appreciated, but also spend time with students who appreciate their expertise outside of a formal hour-long lessons. So now we have, groups of 4 or 5 students meeting with their teacher or a different teacher throughout the year in fun little informal performance sharing masterclass settings. And that was something that I really wanted to see happen because it's in line with my mission. And it's cool to see the teachers and students getting a lot of joy out of it. It's not ever going to make you a lot of money or anything like that. And if we charged a lot, people wouldn't do it. It's more like I really just want the community to grow because the overall health of the business will be stronger, the teachers will be happier, and the students will make friends. The vocalists like it a lot more than the pianists, and that's always going to be the case. But that was more for me than it was for anybody else. And it makes me happy to see it happening and coming together.
Wow. Yeah.
Add that had something to do with our hires too, because they definitely helped make it happen. I definitely was the one that was like, we can do all these things, right? But the way that our system is set up, it kind of does. There's some responsibility that does fall on the instructor. We call them instructors, teachers. Just put some of it together, right? Because they're the ones who's got to conduct it. I'm not going to be there, so that has helped a lot, But yeah, that's been a very cool part. Oh, reminding myself of my long-term goals, because when I first jumped into running a business, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And it was just like this dream state I was in.
Sure.
And I wasn't prepared for reality to hit. So then when it did, I just felt like I was like, trudging through mud, and I just wasn't enjoying anything anymore. And I wasn't feeling creative, and, I just was kind of like losing sight. And so actually, at some point then it kind of did just kind of turn into just going through the motions, which was fine and all, until actually kind of recently it dawned on me where I was like, I need to like probably, I haven't done this yet, but it first just popped to mind. I need to remind myself of my long-term goals. Why did I even start this business? Like, where did it come from? Where is it going? Why is it still here? You know, just answering all these questions, very like philosophical questions, but like, just keeping that mind frame all the time. Because when I have those answers, then it's re-inspiring. It's like, oh, okay, now I have more direction again, you know? So.
You know, Erika, that reminds me of your planner comment. And one of the things, I use this full focus planner that's by this dude, Michael Hyatt, which probably many of our listeners are aware of now. But one of the features that he has in there that I love is exactly what you're describing. It's like in the front, I have my goals and my long-term goals. And then each week, I just take a quick peek at them. And I'm like, is Brooklyn Music Factory in service to these goals? And like for me personally, one of them is I go on these long silent retreats. And so I'm like, is BMF actually systemized and operational in such a way, that I can actually be off the grid for 5 days? Because if it's not, that ain't working for Nate.
Yes. Yeah. And I've learned that's so important that like I serve the business, so it serves me. Like that's why it started.
Well, and that's what the business 100%. Wants too. It's like your community of families. I remember the first time, for example, Erika, that I went on a retreat and I was nervous that my students or the parents would somehow be like, wait, you're missing our lesson this week? No, in fact, the mom, one of these moms, Sarah, came to me and she's like, I just did my first silent retreat. And I was like, what? You're also, you know, and it was just like, I was like, oh, that's what community actually means, is that everybody is hoping that it's mutually beneficial.
Well, we're going to have Adam and Erika back on in a future episode, actually just a few weeks out from right now. And they have some interesting things to share about how they're running Philadelphia Piano Institute. So Adam, Erika, thanks for being on. And we're looking forward to the second episode that'll be coming out in a couple weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. We'll see y'all soon.